And gamers, trainers, Pokemon, welcome to another episode of Pokemon's Health. Pokemon meets men's health. I'm your host, Roy Flash Gordon. I'm here with our guest today, ZemTennar. Zem, how you doing, bro?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. Excited to be here with you today. I want to remind everyone about the Discord. So in the Discord, we've got fine folks like ZemTennar here helping out with team building. We've got the Giraffe League that just started our new season. And of course, you're talking about our fitness goals and other ways that we can support each other in the real life game of things. You're looking for some support like that, please follow that link in the description. Hop into the Discord and we will see you there. All that said, I'm going to hop into the discussion here with ZemTennar, bro. First off, let the folks know a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you guys know, or if you do know, my real name is Jamez Barnett. I am from Ohio. I don't know if anyone likes Ohio, but that's where I'm from. I
Shout out
I
Ohio.
love I love I love Ohio. It's the Midwest. I'll always probably stay in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for a living, I'm right now I'm in between jobs,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been working on like YouTube and like different content creation stuff for a while. And eventually I'm going to be back in the job market, probably sometime in like January, um, just to get that rolling. But I've been working really hard on like content creation, trying to get that monetization going, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
hopefully that happens soon.
No, man.
Um,
Killing it, dude.
I'm 31 and yeah, 32 next year, 2025, 32. We'll see how that goes.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's dope, man. And I see you on the grind and I love your content.
Thank
Right before we started, I said you got that content creator voice for sure, bro. And
you.
you're doing some good stuff. And I love how you I don't know if anyone talks about Pokemon like you do. If so, I haven't seen it before. But just the way the concepts that you talk about in the game itself and at least how you title them I think is super helpful for people trying to learn. So if you haven't checked out Zim's channel, we'll definitely link that in the description at the end of things. But we'll pull it back a little bit. How did you get into the game in the first place? Take us back to your first gen. What was starting like for you, and how did you get into eventually moving towards content creation? And you also do the competitive side of things as well.
So let's go back all the way to, I would say 1990. I think it's 1998
Good
is
to
when the
hear.
first games came out. I think the cards came out before that, possibly, or maybe I'm not really sure. Whatever, whenever the cards came out, that's where I started. So I
Mm-hmm.
started with like at just a little kid, just collecting Pokemon cards. I didn't even know how to play at the time. I was just like playing, like collecting them. I lived in West Virginia at the time. We lived in this like little neighborhood, and every kid in the neighborhood had Pokemon cards, so the whole neighborhood would just be like trading cards. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know like what I had at the time, but like I had most of them except for Mewtwo, and I had managed to get a kid's Mewtwo for a Pikachu, which I look back and I'm like, it's kind of like it's kind of
Oh,
wrong.
filthy.
But
I can't
yeah,
act like I didn't do any trades like that either, though, bro. Like I remember
yeah,
doing some dirty trades. I remember being done dirty multiple times. It's a part of the game.
yeah, yeah. And so then I would say probably like when the first games came out, that's when I started like playing Pokemon. I used to like literally like lock myself in the bathroom and like play all day kind of
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Because like I just wanted to be alone with my Game Boy, just
Oh
playing
yeah.
Pokemon. And I remember like as a kid, you remember how the old Game Boys had like batteries?
Oh yeah.
like like you had to put batteries in them. So
Mhm.
I would run out of like batteries, and then like I would steal the batteries out of like remote controllers and
Oh
like
yeah.
and like put them in my Game Boy so I could play Pokemon. And like at the time, like there wasn't really competitive at the time, but you still had like the regular singles in game, like
Yeah.
battling and all that stuff. But I just that's how I got addicted to Pokemon. And then I really started like battling or doing like VGC somewhere around like Black and White, um,
Mm.
which is like much later, but like I had always been watching it, like
Yeah.
I've been watching since uh Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, or is
Mm.
it Omega Sapphire? It's Omega Ruby, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but that's when I had started like really watching VGC, and then like a little bit like around Black and White is when I started really getting into it. And I would say I really didn't start playing until like Sword and Shield.
Got
So
it.
like Sword and Shield is where I really started like, all right, I'm getting serious. I want to start competing. I want to start playing. And that's kind of like where everything kind of started for me, especially with like the content creation stuff. It was around the Sword and Shield era. I just met Nino, Pokebros.
Mhm.
I think everyone knows who he is.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and I met him at the North America Internationals, which was in Columbus at the time.
Mm.
And I had around that time just started doing content creation, so I just started on like Twitch, and um, I had rated him like I didn't know who he was, but I rated him because I was like, I don't know who to raid. Like I'm just gonna raid whoever's playing Pokemon,
Yeah.
and I rated him, and then he had rated me back, and like I went to NAIC and I saw him there, and we just like hung out the whole time,
Yeah.
and that was just like a really cool experience for me. And
Definitely.
yeah, that's kind of how I kind of got started in content creation, I would say.
Beautiful, dude. And yeah, Nino definitely so many shout outs to Nino, past guest. Probably gonna have him on again one day. Gotta have more conversation
Yeah.
with him because that was when I was just starting this thing. But he, I love the raid system, and Twitch is a great way to even connect with each other, like even if your following didn't blow up from the raid, knowing Nino is a really cool thing, connects you to the community more, you get a new friend out of it, all that. And Nino's been very helpful and showing me that kind of love too. So shout out to that fine man right there. And so you've been starting to transition to more YouTube stuff, have some
Mhm.
very valuable ways of educating people. When did you say like, oh, I think I have such a knowledge base that I can start to do this on YouTube and start to be helpful to players that are starting to learn the game and want to take their game to a new level?
Yeah, so about like 2 years ago, I would say, like I was still doing Twitch kind of like constantly, and then it just got to a point where I'm like, man, like I really want to do something valuable,
Yeah.
something that's going to bring value to the community in some way. And so I kind of spent that time just kind of studying other players, learning from coaches, like just anything I could do to like learn more about the deeper aspects of Pokemon. I was doing that for like 2 years. And then
Mm.
I ended up like writing a book. And then kind of from that, I kind of decided like, man, if people knew the information that I knew from like doing all of this, I think a lot of people, like especially beginners, would have a much easier time getting into VGC because it has like a very high like ceiling when it comes to getting started. Like
Totally.
it's if you're just now starting, it can be really tough if you have no clue about anything. So I just was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I spent so much time learning all this stuff. Um, I'm just going to start putting it out there and see how it goes. So
Yeah.
that's like kind of where that came from. And like it was like recently this year, I'm like, okay, let's start YouTube. Let's see how that goes. And then it actually, as soon as I started posting, it started kind of working, kind of taking off a little bit.
Yeah.
Not too much, but it's working, the way that I would want it to. So,
Yeah.
and I think I have been able to help a lot of people, even if they haven't like talked to me about it. I think
Mm.
a lot of people will like it just based on like my analytics and all that. Like
Totally.
it's showing that people are liking the content. So I think a lot of people are getting a lot of value out of it, and that was my main goal.
Yeah. Beautiful, dude. And that's what's up. And I'm glad to hear that it's working. Whenever your latest video was, I try to drop in on each of them, and the latest one and previous one still, but I was just hit me like real hard, like you're good at this, bro. Like the editing, and your voiceovers on this fucking thing, and of course you know what you're talking about. That's like the bare minimum, but I think like getting people's attention, they want to love how you sound, and you know it has to look like slick in some way, especially if you're doing
Yeah.
in-game stuff, and you do a really great job, man. So congrats
Thank you.
on
Thank you.
taking those steps, and I'm glad that it's starting to you're starting to see it in the analytics, and I know that thing's gonna blow up. I was like, if
Thanks.
it's this good, there's no way it won't. So keep that shit going, dude.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Let's start to shift gears a little bit. And,
Mhm.
of course, one of the other main topics on the podcast is masculinity. And I'd ask the
Mhm.
question a few different ways. Today, I'll just ask you, what does it meant for you to be a man in this world?
In this world, it's really so that question is you can answer it a couple different ways, and I
Mhm.
think like from my perspective, it's a little different just because I'm a black man.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
uh,
Let's go.
being a black man in this world is a lot different than being any other kind of man, especially in America.
Hmm.
Um, we have our history, we have all the stuff black people went through,
Hmm.
and then just you have all of the different uh, things that like in society, like the way people view us right off the bat before they even know who we are. Like
Mm.
it's it makes it tough sometimes to be a man. Not that I'm not a man, but just like it makes it tough to just be a man in America, being a black man sometimes because people are going to view you a certain way right off the bat, and you have to like break that barrier a lot in
Yeah.
order to just get to places where other people might have an easier time getting to. And I know a lot of people like say like, oh, that might not exist these days, or that is not a thing, but I mean, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Like it might not be talked about as much, but it's still a thing and it's still there. So like, and like if you're a black man out there, like I understand what you're going through. If you're
Hmm.
trying to get a new job, if you're trying to look good in a certain social setting, like all that stuff, I understand what that's like. And but I think like being a man in general, for me, a lot of it comes down to like just doing the things that you are called to do um,
Hmm.
in your life. So like for me, content creation is like one of the main things that I'm like, man, I know I can do this. And I know it's something that, like, one of the people that I listened to back then was Neil deGrasse Tyson, another black man.
Hmm. Yes.
Um, he talked about the fact that, um, like, being a man, like, on, like, I don't know, being a content creator or being a man on YouTube or, like, lost my train of thought for a second. Hold on, let me see here. Neil deGrasse Tyson. What did he talk about? Oh yeah. So yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson. So he talked about um not exactly being a man, but he once told me that, or not told me, but told told a video or talked on a video about like how it was tough to come up as a black man being an astrophysicist.
Hmm.
And like I just think that it's it's really hard um to give me 1 second. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
no,
about
I can
this.
help out too, as I think
Yeah.
maybe I can help this a little bit. I When you said doing things you're called to, the first place
Mhm.
I went with that was just like, oh, like a responsibility sort of thing. But you
Yeah,
started to
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about doing what you felt called to do, like in a purpose way. And that is absolutely something I think is
Yeah,
extremely
yeah, yeah.
important.
So that's what I meant. So I got that from Neil deGrasse Tyson because one of the things he talked about on his like YouTube or on Star Talk, which is his like podcast or whatever,
Yeah.
was like um in your life you should do the things that you're called to do. Otherwise, why are you even like doing anything, or why are you here? What is your legacy going to be? What are people going to say about you after you're gone? What
Hmm.
did you do for the world? And I think that is, to me, is a big part of being a man in general and in America in general as well, because in America we're builders. We do, a lot of stuff. We do a lot of things around the world. We make things like that's like what America has always been. And like that really resonated with me.
Hmm. I think I can definitely see there's a few angles I'd love to look at this at, right? The legacy piece. And I see a lot of it's crazy to me, and I can't stand it. Like I see a lot of people think it comes down to, oh, my legacy is just having kids. And it's just like, yeah, but how are you going to raise those kids? Are you going to do a good
Yeah,
job at raising those kids? Like, what are you going to help them like develop within themselves to be full blown people? Like, you can't just, make the baby and just like, oh, that's my legacy. Like, there's so much more than
right,
that. And it's like, as individuals, like, that's just one little piece, like, one little way you can do legacy. But like, how do you do it? Like within yourself and what you have brought to this world to help this world be a better place. Like I think that's
right,
also the key. Like how are you helping the world be a better place? And that we all have a little piece of that that we
right.
can take care of. And I think there's a lot of people and there's a lot of guys, especially as I feel like there is some pressure to like, yo, what are you like actually doing here? Like you can't just fuck off. You can't just
Yeah,
go
yeah, 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 yeah.
like we can't just go and play the video games.
Like,
We
yeah,
we could, but like, oh, but to help somebody like really get good at their hobby, I think that's a
yeah,
great calling to answer because through our hobbies, like we engage with the world, we relax, we escape if we have to, and to help somebody do that at a high level, you can help somebody really get closer and closer to achieving a dream, which may be being a regional champion one day. And I think that's important work. And I think as men, like how do we contribute to others? How are we
right.
building others? I think this is a huge piece.
And I think that like a lot of like I listened to a guy named Myron Golden. I don't know if you know who that is or not, but he talks about how like like your legacy is is like okay, he talks about how like you can find out what your legacy is by being creative in this world.
Yeah.
So like as a man in general, and when I say man, I'm not just saying like just men in general, because like
Yeah.
man is also can describe like all of men and all of women at the same
Yeah.
time,
Totally.
like men. But like you can find out what your legacy is by using your creativity to
Mhm.
do the things that you're supposed to do to help other people in the world. And
Yeah.
by doing that, you can you can you can basically create your legacy just by helping others.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think about like there's so many ways like maybe you're not directly helping somebody but someone like Wolf Glick who also has I don't know if he
Yeah.
does coaching but he does he has his Patreon, but even more importantly he's known as one of the best there ever was, and that's inspirational to people, for
Oh
people
yeah.
to see that, like how many people like want to be like Wolf Glick, play Pokemon like Wolf Glick is like that's important. That's important
Yeah.
for
I
people
mean,
to be inspired as well.
that's where I started. So I used to watch Wolf on YouTube,
Hmm.
like when he first started doing YouTube,
Yeah.
and like I love his like his videos are cool, but I love his old videos. Like his
Yeah.
like his videos where he would just get on and just record and then not edit anything and just like
Yes.
go. Like that was my like favorite stuff of his to watch. Which is why I love that he made that like second channel where he just does that same thing, but like, it's just on a new channel that he has now.
Totally.
But now he's more geared towards like the general audience. Like he kind of makes content for everyone versus just a niche, which is fine. He niched down in the beginning, which is what you're supposed to do, and then kind of branched out. That's what you're supposed to do. So
Yeah.
I'm not like mad at him for that because that makes sense and especially in the on the business side of YouTube.
Hmm.
Um, but like, yeah, Wolf is where I started, man. Like I watched him forever. Like
Hmm.
he was the inspiration. Aaron Cybertron Zhang as well, like those guys. are just like the reason I even wanted to start competing, to be honest. So,
And
um, yeah.
so you compete, you do it well, you feel like called to keep doing more, and now you do a channel where you are now doing the same thing. Like it's definitely a paying it forward of some sort. And I think I've said it on this podcast before, is people will, let's say people who aren't in the community, who aren't gamers necessarily, could look at gaming and say that this is not an important thing, but I will argue like a million times over how important it is. It's a
Mm,
place for escape. Like I think about being a little kid back in the day. I was not in a happy, safe home most of the time, and this shit kept me alive. Like at least like kept my heart alive, kept me inspired,
mhm.
helped me like feel like, oh, I have this thing that I'm actually really good at and I know a lot about and I care about it. Like that stuff is important for people as a kid hugely, and as an adult continues to be. And we engage now in this great community where we got friends and stuff too. It keeps us connected to
Yeah.
people in our life. So important to do what you do, and I appreciate that you do it. Can I ask if there have been any times where, and we can even talk about the standards you've put out there, which I think are just beautiful, but also in the standards of what sometimes the world says men have to be. Have you felt like
Mhm.
you were not living up to a standard of being a quote unquote real man at any point?
This is a cool question.
Yeah.
Because yes, I've honestly all of my life I've always felt that way. I've always felt
Mm-hmm.
like I wasn't living up to the standard. But at the same time, you don't have to, you know?
Yes.
Like, and that's kind of where I stand. I've always felt like, yeah, there's a standard or whatever, but if I'm always trying to live up to some standard, then I'm not being myself.
Yep.
So like, why would I want to do that? I'm just going to be me, and then I know that I'm a good person overall. So the standards are going to come and they're going to meet me where I am.
Oh yeah.
And I have my own standards for what it means to be me and what it means to be a man. And that's just what it's going to be. So, like, that's why I think it's a really cool question because, like, if you're a man and you're looking at society and you're like, man, like how am I going to live up to society standards? Just know, like, you don't have to live up to society standards because not only do you need to be your own person, but the standards constantly change.
Yeah.
So, like, at what point do you say, like I'm just gonna decide to just be me, or I'm gonna keep trying to change myself just to live up to some standard for people that I don't even know that don't even really like me that much.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not to me, it's not worth it in that case. Just be yourself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that, man. That probably best answer. I mean, I love the realness in the past. People go, absolutely. That standard. And like they don't keep going. And we often, can get there, right? And just like, especially another thing I love about this community and Pokemon community. We've been playing Pokemon since we were little kids. We probably been made fun about it at some point, and we kept fucking going. You know what I mean? It's just like what makes me happy in this experience.
Right, right.
I'm taking care of my responsibilities in life, and I'm living the life that I love. I am me. How do I be me, and me who also happens to be a man? Well, manhood. I'm a man regardless, and
Hmm.
I'm whatever I do is what a man does also,
Yeah.
that also, and that can, there's a spectrum of behaviors and presentations that we can have. And your manhood is still totally valid, and no arbitrary standard can change that. And I think it's even more important as a black man, or even as another person of
Yeah.
color who has been made to feel away in this society, this where racism very, very much still important. It
Hmm.
sucks that it is, and it's very much still important. Like, we have that additional layer of, yeah, I'm still a man, and I'm black, and
Yeah.
I'm less than any other because of the way I've chosen to live my life, or the color of my skin, or like this culture that I'm from and I'm representing. And I
Hmm.
even like adding a layer to it for us. Like there's times I don't feel black enough for sure. You know what I mean? I'm
Right,
curious
right,
if you,
right.
you know, you've dealt with that as well. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing, right? And just like, no, this is how I'm a black man. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
I felt that way.
and that's what I mean. Like in different social settings, especially as a black man, like you're expected to act a certain way. Like, and a lot of people don't talk about like us with our black families. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I will act, and it's not me trying to like be different or anything or weird, but like I will act different in different social settings depending on who I'm with. And
Hmm.
I think most people do that, but like especially like if I'm around my family and like all of them are black, like I usually try to meet people where they are when it comes to their when it comes to how they are socially around
Totally.
others. So
Totally.
like I might change like the way that I say something or the way that I talk or some of the words that I use just because I know that person is going to be able to understand me better if I meet them where they are. And
Totally.
so like a lot of people don't talk about that because like and a lot of people don't even know that we do like that we do that. Like
Totally.
you know and if I'm going to like let's say I'm going to a job interview or you know and I'm in a like all white setting, you know what I mean,
Hmm.
like I'm going to act totally differently because I'm meeting them where they are. They need to be able to understand me and they don't understand all the slang or all the things that we say if we're just in our like
Yeah.
in our room with our black family, you know. Like
You got to
it's
give
like
that straight, normal handshake.
right, like it's and that's not like and I think there's a lot of like black guys that do that. They might even do it and not realize it, but it's
Totally.
just like especially like as a black man, I've had to adapt over my entire life to different social situations just so I can get by or do what I need to. Like I might like at one point I lived in Las Vegas and I
Hmm.
was in a neighborhood that was predominantly all black. And so I talked and totally acted differently than I do now because it was a totally different social situation and I needed to basically survive. It was like a survival instinct.
Yes. Totally.
So you need to
Totally.
be able to communicate, and I think that's a big, um, I think that's a, I think that's a really big deal because like you always need to be able to communicate in whatever social situation you're in.
Absolutely. And I long for the world where we can, first of all, I just like, it's like valid that we do it. And I think, you know, it's a topic of discussion for sure. I think it's called code switching. And I know it's a topic of discussion, but we have done it to survive. I think we kind of have to do it to survive. And I long for the day where you can go to a job interview and like you might not even like I hate the word like professional, unprofessional, like, but
Right,
they're gonna
right.
call how you are with like your family unprofessional. And it's like, nah, dog, like that's how I talk. You know what I mean? And I
It's just
long
who
for the
we are.
day
Yeah.
where you can just talk and be who you are, but it's valid to have to code switch and to survive. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
To get this damn job that you gotta, you know, get to put some money in the bank, some food on the table, whatever it is. And it's important. I think it is important to like acknowledge it though, because like without acknowledging it and like knowing like, oh, hey, I'm doing this thing, like I
Mhm.
don't know, I feel like a lot of just bad energy can build up and make you feel a certain way about yourself and how you're moving, but it's absolutely valid. And as long as you have the space to be who you are for real on a regular
Right.
basis in your life and community, I think as long as we keep ourselves like in those spaces that we're good. We're good.
Right. Right.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, next one. And the last one, not quite the last question, but close there, wrapping up soon. The mental health question. Just
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had any challenges with mental health that you've had to overcome or manage, and what did that look like for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of my life.
Yeah.
Like like all of my life. Like I don't know how much more clear I could say that. Like going through like I mean all the way down to I can remember all the way back to elementary school. Not even really that, like daycare, honestly. And
Mm,
it was, you know, I was just a kid at the time, but I remember like the first time that I had like that I noticed that I had some kind of mental health issue.
mm,
And I'm not saying that like because like now I understand myself a lot better, but like at the time it was like I was in like daycare and there was this girl and for some reason as a kid I really wanted a girlfriend. I don't know I don't know why.
Little lover boy right here too, bro.
I remember like I really wanted a girlfriend um and like there was this girl in daycare and she like basically agreed like to be my girlfriend. I was like, cool, all right. But then like every single day I would go to daycare, I would ask her over and over again if she was still my girlfriend. And like and then one day she just said, no, I'm not. And like, but that was like the first time that I can remember and I can think back on them like that's the first time I realized that I had some sort of like I think that was probably something like OCD, I think.
Hmm.
Like um like I had to know every moment of my life
Yeah,
if what was there or what was a thing was actually a thing.
yeah,
And like now I manage that stuff way better. Like I'm like one of those like people where you might not be able to tell unless I tell you like that I have like my own mental health that I'm dealing with and things that
yeah.
I'm doing. But I've just managed to manage it a lot better. Like as a kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Hmm.
My mom put me on a medicine called Ritalin. I don't know if you know what that
Hmm.
is.
Yeah.
But I started taking it and she noticed that I was acting weird. And she was like, man, like, and she told me when I was older, she was like, you wouldn't like, you would just sit in a corner and not do anything, like just blank stare all day.
Oh
And
man.
so then she took me off of it. She was like, you're better off just like being you. And
Yeah.
so, and I'm glad I like, I thank her for that. Like
Oh yeah.
as much as like doctors and stuff or like society will tell you like, oh, you have mental health issues, you need to be on medicine, like all this stuff. Like, I don't necessarily believe that medicine is always the answer. I'm not saying it's not. Like it is the answer for some people.
Hmm.
It does help. It's there to help you get over or get through or learn how to manage your whatever your mental health issue is, but it's not there to like replace your mental health, if you know what I mean.
Totally.
And I think that's like with most drugs, it's like the same deal.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so like over time, I have managed it better. Eventually, I ended up moving in with like my dad, who was like a really big influence on my life.
Yeah.
Uh, and I would say I was about probably like 12 when that happened. And like during my teenage years, I went through a lot of different phases of different types of things that I was dealing with mental health because you know you got that mixed with um like maturing and like
Yeah.
and
Whole
like
different animal.
yeah and then you know you have puberty like all of that mixed in with that it was just like it was crazy like there was a phase in my life where it was probably like 10th grade where I was I don't know if you call it probably emo I guess you would call it like
Hmm.
back then I think that was like the only thing that people knew it as
Hell yeah.
but like I literally just like hated everything. It was
Yeah.
crazy. Like it didn't matter what it was. I just hated it. Or I was just like I was so pessimistic, you know, like about everything. And I don't even know like when I think back about it, I'm like I don't really know why it was that way. I think it had to do with like just going through puberty as well, but like also having my own like mental health I was dealing with, like just things that were going on at home that I didn't know how to handle as a kid.
Totally.
I think a lot of people go through stuff like that and they don't really talk about it.
Hmm.
Especially kids. Like kids will see something at home and not really understand what's going on, but they know that it's not good, you know.
Yeah.
And so when you go through situations like that, it really, especially like me going to school and stuff, like it made it tough to go through my day to day without thinking about stuff or, you know, without feeling down in some way. And I would say like probably after that year, my mental health got a lot better. I became more optimistic.
Yeah.
Um, so much so that like once I went to college, one of my friends was like, "Man, you just see the good in everything," and I'm like, "Yeah, but like, why not? You know, like."
Yeah.
If you're gonna go through life just being like just seeing the bad and everything, like what's the point in living?
Yeah.
Like have some optimism, have some, like vision for your future or what
Yes.
you want out of life. Like, and I think that a lot of people have a hard time like with that because they'll look around and it's really easy to take the bad things in your life or the bad things that you see around you and just let that just overcome and overwhelm you to the point where you can't see anything good. But
Yeah.
like the one of the guys I watch now, Myron Golden, he talks about how like, yeah, while there's bad stuff happening, there's no such thing as a one-sided coin. You always are going to
Mm.
have just as good things happening as the bad stuff that's happening in your life, and you have to choose what you're going to focus on.
Yes.
And I think I learned that as as a teenager. Like I had to, just to get through high school.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, because in high school, you got other like kids don't care. Like they will say whatever they want to, and
Hmm.
especially to other kids and just make you feel terrible. So like I had to find a way as a kid to get around that. And I think it's really important to always look at what's good in your life, because a lot of times there's a lot more good stuff going on than what you probably realize, and you can probably turn a lot of those bad situations around just by viewing your life that way.
Totally.
Um, I would say like nowadays, I still go through stuff. Like everyone does. Like
Yeah.
there's always something. I manage a lot better. I deal with stress better. I stress still. Like I still have ADHD. Like
Hmm.
it still affects me, but I manage it well. And that's because I've taken on like different, I would say different tasks, different activities that help me to manage it. Like I got into meditation.
Yes.
I got into daily walks. I got into exercise. I got like all these different things that if you go like on YouTube or something, you look at like some of these doctors and they're talking about this stuff and they talk about how like this is some of this stuff is all you really need to really change your brain chemistry and get you in
Hmm.
that right mindset or get you out of whatever is going on with you. And I kind of like took that to heart at a certain point in my life and started applying it, and it has helped me manage it a lot better. Like it's just, but I still go through things just like everyone else does. Car breaks down, I'm still going to stress about it.
Yeah.
That's like one of the like main things. Like I've had car issues for the past 5 years
Yeah.
constantly for different reasons, and at this point, I'm like, you know what? It's going to happen. I'm just going to try and prepare as best as I can for it, and and then go
Totally.
going about my day. Um, but like, yeah, there's a lot of things that honestly could get me down today, but I choose. And that's the important thing is I choose not to let it do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
choose to look at what's good and try and move forward in that direction because there's no point in like sitting around and wallowing in your sorrow for no reason and nothing and doing nothing about it. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to end up anywhere if you do that. So like
Absolutely.
it's a lot easier to just look at the good or try your best to look at the good. In the morning, ask yourself like, what am I grateful for?
Yeah.
And like that simple question can really start your entire day off in a good way. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I love the gratitude question. It's just like, especially when you are in the depths of going through it. Like I don't know that I've been in any point in my life where I've been so down bad that I was like literally nothing good is happening. But that's the experience for some people. Like they get that down bad. And the gratitude question can, if that makes you see a little twinkle of light in the darkness, like that can be enough to start, pulling you down the path. I appreciated when you said like you can't just stay in that bad state. Like action is power, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right action that fixes everything
Mm-hmm.
immediately. But again, that step forward to better outcomes. I also
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate it. And I think a lot of guys Not a lot of guys in general. Yeah, even, shit, a lot of people in general. But I think like the gamer sort. Like I think that there's a lot of ADHD in our community.
Mm.
And I just think I think there's a lot of like correlations of things like with Pokemon players and like something like
Yeah.
ADHD. This just correlates. It's not like, playing Pokemon gives you ADHD or vice versa, but I think there's some correlation. And I think guys have trouble with meditation. And when I tell you everyone has trouble with meditation at first, guys, like it's just how it goes. Give
Yeah.
it a shot. It
Yeah.
changes the game. It changes the
Yeah.
game. So like we know about fitness, right? I think
Yeah.
I think the world's probably a much fitter place than it was 10 years ago or something, just because people like know the benefits, are getting into it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
great. We got that physical piece going or getting started in your life. Great. There's a mental piece, a spirit piece when you meditate, and it's so valuable and cannot
Yeah.
say that enough. I'm so glad to hear that you do it and that's been something helpful for you.
Yeah, because it really helps to connect to your inner self or to the
Mm-hmm.
higher self or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Whatever that is for you, it really helps to connect to that and to really stand back and to look at your life from an outside perspective. It allows you to do that. So it actually like you become the higher self looking at your life from a third person's point of view.
Yes.
And I think when you're able to do that, especially during meditation, you start seeing yourself doing it during your day, during your regular life. And you go, man,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in this situation. Like, how would let me step back for a second. Let me look at this from a third person's perspective without any influence on what's going on. Like just look at it and then try to see it from someone who isn't you, and
Yes.
then say, okay, now how am I going to handle this situation? How would this look from that perspective? And does it even make sense to even pay attention to it? And I think meditation
Mm-hmm.
helps a lot out with that. And like just like delving into the meditation really quick, but like I started with like probably about 15 minutes, or actually no, I started with like 5 minutes
Yeah.
is when I started doing meditation. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes can help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I don't know if you've ever watched Oprah Winfrey or not, but she used to talk about like taking she would make her entire staff take 5 minutes a day to meditate
I love it.
because she thought that it was that beneficial for her company. So
Totally.
like if Oprah's doing it for her whole company, like it's got to be. I'm not saying Oprah's the end all be all, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know what
The
I
money.
mean, like right. But I started with 5 minutes, and eventually, like, I went down a path of doing it every day. And
Mhm.
eventually, I get to 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Then I got to all the way to an hour. I'll say an hour, and about an hour is probably like my max.
Yeah,
Before I'm like, all right, let me just
totally.
live life now.
Yes.
But like, and a lot of people don't talk about. I think it's one of the most important things when it for at least for me when it came to my mental health. Like I think it was one of the most important things that I've ever done is
Yeah,
start meditating. Um, a lot of people don't talk about how like other cultures around the world they meditate. Like
yep,
it is a normal part of their day to
totally.
have to sit down and have a quiet time.
Hmm.
Like you'll see that like Japan, China, India, like all of those places, all those people are doing some kind of meditation to help them get through their day or just to help them in their life in general and with their mental health. And you can see how it helps their communities and their economy. Like those people are very I'm not saying it's everyone, but those people are very like about their life. They're typically really good at everything that they do. Like they do it with meaning, and they're like everything I do is going to have some kind of purpose. Like they're
Yes,
like and and you can get the benefit of that if you like start meditating. Like once
yes,
you start meditating and you really take it seriously, you'll see like this is actually helping me to do things in my life better because I'm able to look at things from a different perspective.
yes. Slow down, breathe, settle down. So many benefits. Me personally, I do it pretty much every day, 5 minutes in the morning. I wake up super early, so I'm like, just 5 minutes. But I can, at this point in my life, go an hour and it not be a big deal. There's sometimes I'll start and I'm like, okay, I'll go 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, all right, let me do a little bit longer. And then all of a
Yeah,
sudden it's been 40 minutes or something like that. Or I found myself pulling back and I'm like, damn, I wish I could keep going. Like, and it didn't start like that. It started as my mind could not stop. It could not slow down. And I'd say, expect that in the first place if you're going to give it a shot, but like trust that you are doing it well and that it may just take time for it to feel as good as what we're
yeah,
saying it feels like, but
yeah. And
something to practice.
if I can make one quick suggestion, if anyone's listening and you want to start meditation, just look up a guy named Alan Watts on YouTube and
Mm.
just do what he says, and
Oh, yeah.
you'll get into it. If you're serious about it, you'll get into it and you'll be able to start doing it.
Yes. Is it like a guided meditation sort of deal?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful.
Just
That's another great way to do it. Totally.
yeah. That's a good way to start. Yeah.
Yes. Hell yeah, dude. Last couple questions. What about Pokemon makes you happy?
Oh man. So I'm a very competitive person. I might not seem like it all the time, but I'm highly competitive in everything that I do. If I'm doing something that has some kind of competitive aspect to it, I'm going to get really into it. Like, even if I'm just playing Uno, like
Oh
I'm,
yeah,
like,
yeah. I feel you.
like I'm that guy at the table that's going to just like start screaming about everything. Like I'm trying to win.
Mm,
Um, and for some people, that's like a turnoff. Like they don't want to be super competitive. That doesn't make them happy. That makes them feel stressed. But
mm,
for me, that makes me really happy, especially Pokemon. Like Pokemon VGC, the competitive aspect of it makes me super happy because I'm naturally competitive.
yeah.
And it helps me. I'm also a thinker.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
like I love thinking more than most things. So the fact that you have to think so much when you're playing VGC, it just really works for me. Like it
yeah.
makes me happy. I'm naturally happy playing Pokemon because that's who I am as a person. Um, and not only that, but like Pokemon in general makes me happy when I think back about it because it's one of those things that, and for a lot of us, like I grew up with it. Um,
Hmm.
it came out when I was a kid. Uh, the show, like every time I play or I'm listening to some Pokemon music or something, it just brings me back to that moment where I saw the first episode of Pokemon on I think it was Cartoon Network at the time.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
I think that's where they first played it. And man, like when I tell you, like I remember being a kid and be like, man, I wish this was real. Like,
Yes.
like I wish I could just be a 12-year-old kid, leave home, and just start catching animals and just battling them and making money. Like
Yes.
that was my dream. Like as a kid, that was my dream. And
Hell yeah.
like now that you can, and we're getting closer and closer to the point where people are actually able to do that.
Yeah.
Like
Hell
it
yeah.
might not be real Pokemon in real life, but you can play Pokemon and make money, through content creation. If you
Yeah.
win tournaments, you can make money. You can you can do all kinds of stuff like Patreon. Like there's all kinds of ways to monetize Pokemon at this
Yeah.
point, and it's only going to get bigger. Like I can't see it ever stopping really because they're just making so much from it.
Hell
So
yeah. Hell yeah.
yeah,
It's
I would.
it's the same spirit. It's like the same spirit of the show, even in
Yeah,
how you make your teams, the names you give your mind. Like if you customize if you brought them all the way up from, I don't even know how far back you can pull them from, but pretty far, I'm pretty sure, like it's like
yeah,
this little, he's your little digital buddy, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that part's like super cool too. I love it, man.
yeah.
Final question. If
Yep.
you knew that there was a man out there struggling to get through the day, what might you say to give that man a little encouragement?
Yeah, so depending on what it is they're going through, but I would probably say in general, like don't give up, you know, like there's so many things to be grateful for. There's so many things, and you might not see it right away. You might not see it right now, but you might look back, like don't give up because you might look back at this time in your life and realize that the tough stuff that you're going through right now is probably a setup for your success in the future.
Mm.
Like a lot of people like will go through things in life. Like a lot of the successful people that you see, like on TV or on YouTube, they went through a phase in their life where they weren't successful and they were having a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about just like having a hard time making content or making whatever they make, but like they might have had a hard time in their life. You know, you can look at people like J.K. Rowling, like you know, she made Harry Potter, but she was almost homeless, you
Mm-hmm.
know, writing that book and got rejected by a lot of people before someone said yes because their kid read the book. They read like an executive was like, "Hey, I want you to read this. Tell me if you like it." And he told his kid that. The kid was like, "I love this," and then she got her deal. You know what I mean? Like you can look at people like Tyler Perry, another
Mm-hmm.
black man. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was homeless, and he was making plays for his church. And then eventually it grew so big, he became Tyler Perry.
That's
You know,
crazy.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people that you think, oh man, they're successful, they had an easy time in life. That's just not true. Like a lot of people that you see that are successful now, they went through some kind of hard time that felt like life ending.
Yep.
And eventually the things they were doing, they didn't give up. They whatever that was for them, you know, you might just be going through a job loss or you might be going through, I don't know, a death in the family. But don't give up because sometimes and a lot of times that is a setup for your future. It's a setup for you to be able to either help someone in their future
Mm.
by being able to tell them, hey, like I went through this, man. I understand what you're going through. Like, let me help you with what I know. You know, like things like that. Like, and you might not see that right now, but eventually you will see it. Just don't give up.
Absolutely. That's beautiful, man. The way I think of things, and not that any of us literally ask for hard times or suffering in life, but like if you needed a spiritual like reason, like that these things happen in the world, there's a lot of reasons, but what we can take for it as individuals is like, I'm going through this so I can overcome it, and you know, survive the next day, but maybe even help somebody else along the way when
Right.
they're there. And I appreciate that piece of that so much, bro. This has been excellent conversations. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate us knowing each other. I appreciate the work that you do on YouTube and what you've been helping us with in the Discord as well. I've learned a lot from you and hope to continue to do it, bro.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, and you as well. I know that you're doing this podcast, and you know if you're just now coming in and you're watching this podcast, please watch the other videos. I've watched them; they're good. Everyone has a different perspective, and it's always good to get all the perspectives. So, yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you.
Anytime, bro. I'm gonna catch you soon.
All right.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you give it a like, subscribe, or share with someone who you think might get something from the podcast, from the message. My goal is to get this in front of every guy who could possibly need it so they can not only feel better, but do better and be better for the world.